the Syrian Arab Republic.
شكرا السيد الرئيس.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to thank you for organizing this important briefing. The protection of civilians from the pangs of war is at the center of international law. Unfortunately, experience shows us that the protection of civilians in regions that are in conflict and in difficulties is now being used selectively as an instrument to serve interests that are against the principles of international law. And so my delegation saw the concept paper that you proposed for today's meeting, and we would like to reaffirm its major points, the following points. First of all, the protection of civilians will avoid people from the horrors of war. It will stop armed conflict and use peaceful means to put an end to conflict. It therefore requires strict compliance with the principles of international law, the principles and objectives of the Charter of the United Nations, based on which the principles of sovereignty and non-interference in the internal affairs of states are based. Secondly, the initial responsibility, the protection of civilians, is up to the state in question. And three, the protection of civilians must not be politicized. It must not be relativized by making it a tool for foreign intervention or an attempt to effect regime change or in the interests of just certain states. Additionally, the attempts of some member states of the Security Council to impose their policies, selective policies, will not do anything but cause more damage to the role that the Council is to play under the Charter. For, with respect to providing humanitarian assistance, my government, and in spite of the economic war we're suffering, is doing its utmost to meet the needs for the survival of its population. In this respect, the government of Syria has cooperated with the different UN bodies, such as humanitarian assistance bodies, as well as the ICRC. We have brought in all possible facilities, in particular by increasing the number of NGOs who work in Syria, to enable them to work and to present their support to the Syrian people. As part of compliance or respect for the sovereignty of Syria, and under Resolution 46-182. However, provision of basic necessities for the people of Syria, such as food, medicine, fuel, remains the victim of unilateral measures imposed on our state, and as a result upon the survival of our people. Therefore, we call on the Council to act. And five, some states continue to exploit the suffering of Syrian refugees, not knowing the real reasons that led them to seek refuge abroad, namely terrorist acts. Some armed groups are responsible for these. And the negative behaviors of states receiving these refugees are unknown. So that's the reason why we say that if people bring in Syrian refugees and trade on their suffering, that we ask them to stop that and to stop victimizing them with mistreatment and to allow them to go back to their country. 6, the government of Syria is exercising its constitutional duties with respect to building a state based on the rule of law and fighting impunity. The judiciary in Syria spares no effort to consider all cases that are sent to it. For example, the National Commission established to study Syria is continuing its work to judge all of those that have been guilty of negative actions. And despite of all that, it's deplorable to see that some states continue to exploit this situation in my country and this forum. And even though we are against this, we reaffirm that Syria, the state of Syria, and the state which holds the well-being of the people dearer than any other country, we are up to our constitutional duties having to do with the protection of our people from the scourge of terrorism. We are working for a return to peace and security, while some member states continue to ignore the terrorist acts that are aimed at the people and government of Syria. We ask that the Security Council live up to its responsibilities, that it condemn terrorism that is victimizing Syria, that they ask for accountability for those states that are lending their armed and financial assistance, that provide refuge to terrorist groups, transnational groups, in flagrant violation of international law, in particular having to do with counterterrorism. We ask that the Council force those states, Turkey, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia especially, to cease those activities and to withdraw their mercenaries from Syrian territory. Madam President, this question is part of a discussion in the Council now for 15 years. The Council, in this period of time, must have listened to hundreds of statements calling on Israel to end its practices against the inhabitants of the occupied territories and the states of the region. But the supports given by permanent members of this Council to Israel has demonstrated the false nature of what these states are claiming, and the policy that they're pursuing are based on a double standard, which means that Israel thinks that it's sheltered from accountability and therefore can continue its criminal policies, its aggression, thereby threatening peace and international security, undermining the principles and rules of international law and IHL and human rights law. The policies of Israel, as we've seen in hundreds of UN reports, are acts of aggression, are crimes of genocide, crimes against humanity, which require accountability, and very firmly so. My delegation reaffirms the need to bring security and protection to civilians living under Israeli occupation in the Syrian Golan, which is occupied, and in other Arab territories, and to put an end to the aggressive practices of Israel. In conclusion, the treatment and analysis of the situation prevailing in Syria must be very, very responsible, neutral, and transparent, so as to find out the reality of what's going on the ground. Far from a tricky approach serving only some, and therefore we say it's necessary for the Council to support the efforts to promote a political settlement of the situation in Syria under 242, 243 and the Geneva Communication. Thank you very much.
I